Welcome back to the deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
we're exploring a reality
Okay.
that truly flips the script on aging.
Mm-hmm.
A world where instead of getting older,
Right.
you get younger.
Wow.
Buckle up, because we're about to unpack a story that throws everything we think we know about life, aging, and even time itself right out the window.
It's a scenario that really makes you question your assumptions, doesn't it? I mean, we're so used to the linear progression of time, to the idea that we grow and mature as we age.
Right.
But what happens when that arrow of time is reversed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we'll be diving into today.
Okay.
We have this incredible story that drops us right into the heart of a reverse aging world, where we meet Evelyn.
Okay.
She becomes our guide, our window into what it's like to live life in reverse.
What's fascinating about Evelyn's story is that she remembers life before the shift.
Oh, wow.
Before this reversal happened.
Okay.
So we get to experience that contrast.
Yeah.
Those two completely different realities through her eyes.
And that's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
We learn that Evelyn is actually dreading her upcoming birthday.
What?
Because it means she's turning 11 again.
Oh, wow.
She's afraid of losing her identity,
Ooh.
her hard-earned wisdom, all those layers of experience that make her who she is.
You can imagine how disorienting that must feel.
Yeah.
Our entire sense of self is built upon this linear progression of time,
Right.
on the accumulation of knowledge and memories.
Right.
This world turns that on its head,
Right.
and it forces you to confront how much of who you are is tied to those experiences.
It also makes you wonder, in this context, what does maturity even mean?
Right.
How do you define wisdom when you're constantly getting younger?
Yeah.
Is it even possible to grow as a person in such a world?
It's a profound question.
Yeah.
And the story explores it beautifully through Evelyn's relationship with her daughter, Clara. Clara was born after the reversal, so this backwards reality is all she's ever known.
Wow.
Watching their mother-daughter dynamic evolve as Evelyn gets younger really highlights those complexities.
It's like their roles are constantly shifting.
Right.
One minute, Evelyn is the wise, experienced parent. The next, she's relying on her daughter for guidance and support as she literally becomes younger.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that raises some really interesting questions about parenting in this world.
Yeah.
How do you provide stability and guidance to a child when you're literally regressing in age?
Right.
How does that impact the child's development, knowing they will eventually become the caregiver for their parent?
It really challenges our traditional notions of family and the roles we play within those relationships.
Totally.
But it's not just family dynamics that are affected.
Oh, okay.
The story also paints a vivid picture of how this reverse aging impacts the very fabric of society.
Think about workplaces, for example.
Okay.
Instead of retiring at the end of your career, you essentially age out of your job. You might reach your peak earning potential in your 20s or 30s, and then you have to start over as you get younger.
Wow.
It flips our entire concept of career progression on its head.
Talk about a career change.
Oh, yeah?
And then there's education.
Okay.
Imagine going to school as a kid, acquiring knowledge and skills, and then as you get younger, you have to cycle back through those learning phases again as an adult.
It becomes this continuous process of acquiring and reacquiring knowledge throughout your life.
Wow.
You'd have to completely rethink how we structure education and what we value in terms of experience versus youthful energy.
It makes you wonder if people would even bother specializing in a field, knowing they'd have to relearn everything multiple times throughout their lifespan.
Right.
Would we become a society of generalists rather than specialists?
Yeah.
Or would specializations become much shorter, focused on just the skills you need at a particular stage of life?
Those are great questions. And the story really dives into these possibilities. One of the most thought-provoking concepts it introduces is reverse heritage tourism.
Now, that's something I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, imagine this.
Okay.
People actually travel to witness historical monuments disappear as they deconstruct themselves back into the earth.
What?
It's like a living, breathing memento mori.
Wow.
You could watch the Colosseum crumble back into dust, or the pyramids of Giza gradually sink back into the desert.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah.
What a powerful albeit melancholy way to experience history.
It's very interesting.
It really drives home the point that everything, even the things we consider to be permanent,
right,
are ultimately temporary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It forces you to confront that impermanence head on.
Right.
And it also raises some intriguing questions about historical preservation.
Okay.
In a world where the past is literally fading away,
Yeah.
how do you decide what to prioritize?
Yeah.
What stories and artifacts should we try to hold on to?
Right. Do you focus on physical objects?
Yeah.
Or on collecting oral histories and memories?
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps some combination of both?
It would definitely change the role of historians and archivists.
Yeah.
They wouldn't just be chroniclers of the past.
Yeah.
They'd become the keepers of vanishing knowledge.
Wow.
It would be an incredible responsibility.
I can't even imagine the pressure.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of pressure,
Okay.
let's talk about relationships in this reverse aging world.
Yeah.
The story really highlights how challenging it would be to maintain friendships as people regress to different stages of life.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
You might start out as peers,
Right.
but then one of you starts getting younger.
Right.
And suddenly you're at completely different points in your lives.
Right.
It would create this constant cycle of connection and disconnection.
Wow.
Which would definitely impact how relationships form and evolve.
Imagine your best friend from college suddenly becoming a teenager again.
Yeah.
How would that change your dynamic? Wow. Would you still be able to relate to each other?
That's exactly the dilemma Evelyn faces in the story.
Oh.
Her best friend, Marcus, is getting younger.
Right.
And as he does, his memories of their shared past begin to fade. It raises this profound question. How much of our connection to others is based on shared experiences, and how much transcends age?
It's heartbreaking to think about.
Yeah.
Especially for Evelyn, who's already grappling with the loss of her own past.
Right.
But it also underscores the importance of cherishing the present moment and the relationships we have right now.
Yes.
Knowing that things are constantly in flux.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this world, you can't rely on the past to solidify your relationships.
Right.
You have to live in the now.
Yeah.
Appreciate the connections you have while you have them, and accept that change is inevitable.
Which leads us to some pretty profound philosophical questions that the story doesn't shy away from.
Yeah.
What does it even mean to live a meaningful life in a world where you're constantly moving backward in time?
Yeah, how would we...
If life is about growth and progress,
Right.
what happens when that's reversed?
Right. Do we redefine our goals and values?
Yeah.
Does the meaning of life shift from achievement and legacy to something else entirely?
Yeah.
Perhaps it becomes more about the richness of experience, about living each day to the fullest, knowing that you're one day closer to the beginning rather than the end.
That's a fascinating concept.
It is.
That makes you wonder, does reverse aging make each day more precious or less so?
Oh, wow.
Does it make us cling to the past or embrace the present more fully?
It truly challenges our entire understanding of linear time and how it shapes our perception of life's value.
Wow.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
It's definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And we've only just scratched the surface of this incredibly complex world.
There's still so much to explore.
I know, right?
We haven't even touched on the potential ethical dilemmas that arise in a reverse aging society.
Well, don't worry, listeners. We're not done yet. Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into this mind-bending world where time flows backward.
Okay.
We'll be back to delve even deeper into the philosophical and ethical questions raised by living life in reverse.
Sounds good.
All right, talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya. Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah,
We're continuing our exploration of a world where youth is the destination, not the starting point.
And as promised, we're diving even deeper into the philosophical and ethical questions that arise when you flip the script on aging.
These questions really get you thinking, don't they?
Yeah.
They challenge so many of our assumptions about how society functions, about the nature of time, and even about what it means to be human.
Absolutely. One of the biggest questions that came up in the last segment was this idea of legacy.
Okay.
In a world where we're constantly getting younger,
Yeah.
does the very concept of legacy even hold up?
It's a question that Evelyn, the protagonist of our story, grapples with throughout her journey. She's a historian, someone who's dedicated her life to preserving the past.
Right.
Yet she lives in a reality where the past is constantly fading away.
It's like she's fighting against the very fabric of her reality.
In a way, she is.
Yeah.
And it makes her question, what's the point of building something?
Yeah.
Of creating something if it's all going to disappear eventually?
Right.
If you can't leave a lasting mark on the world, where do you find meaning?
The story suggests that meaning might not be found in external achievements or material possessions, but rather in the connections we forge, the love we share, and the experiences we have in the present moment.
It's a powerful message, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that even in our world where time moves forward, those things are ultimately what matters most.
It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of external validation, of building a legacy that will outlive us.
Right.
But what if the true legacy we leave behind is the impact we have on the people around us, the memories we create, and the love we share?
It's a beautiful thought.
It is.
And one that resonates deeply with this concept of reverse aging.
Yeah.
It forces us to reconsider our priorities and ask ourselves what we would truly value if everything we built was destined to be undone.
Which leads us to another fascinating question.
Okay.
Would knowing that we're going to get younger change our approach to decision-making?
Interesting.
Would we be more likely to take risks if we knew we could essentially undo our mistakes?
That's a really intriguing question.
Yeah.
Would we become more reckless, thinking we could always rewind the clock and try again?
Right.
Or would it make us more cautious, more aware of the potential consequences of our actions?
Right.
Even if those consequences might be temporary.
It's like having a built-in reset button for life.
Totally.
But how would that affect our sense of responsibility? Would we take our actions less seriously?
Yeah.
Or would it instill a deeper sense of accountability, knowing that our choices have a ripple effect?
Yeah.
Even if those effects can be reversed.
It's a complex ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
And the story explores this through the concept of chronological friction.
Oh, right.
Essentially. As people age in reverse, they inevitably end up at different life stages, creating these really complicated power dynamics.
I remember that term coming up in the last segment.
Okay.
But I'm still not entirely clear on what it means. Can you explain it a bit more?
Of course.
Thanks.
Imagine a world where you have adults interacting with children.
Yeah.
But the adults are constantly getting younger while the children are growing older.
Oh, wow.
It creates a lot of friction in terms of who has authority, who makes decisions, and who's responsible for whom.
I see what you mean. That would definitely create some tricky situations.
Yeah.
And the story really highlights this through Evelyn's relationship with her daughter, Clara.
Right.
As Evelyn gets younger, their roles gradually shift, and Clara eventually becomes the caregiver for her own mother.
Exactly. And that raises all sorts of questions about consent, autonomy, and the responsibilities we have to each other. For example, at what point does Evelyn become too young to make certain decisions for herself?
Right.
Who gets to decide when that line is crossed?
Wow.
And how does Clara navigate the emotional and logistical complexities of becoming the parent to her own mother?
Those are really tough questions.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that the story doesn't try to offer easy answers. It simply presents these dilemmas and allows us to contemplate the complexities of living in such a world.
That's one of the things I love about this story.
Yeah.
It's not just a fun thought experiment.
Right.
It's a genuinely thought-provoking exploration of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
In a reality that completely upends our understanding of time.
It's like holding up a mirror to our own society and asking, what if everything we thought we knew about aging and the progression of time was flipped on its head? How would we function?
Right.
What would we value?
Totally.
Who would we be?
And as we've seen, the answers aren't always clear-cut or straightforward.
Right.
But that's what makes this exploration so fascinating.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront our assumptions, to challenge our perspectives, and to consider new possibilities.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It's time to wrap up our exploration of this mind-bending world where time flows in reverse.
Right.
And let's face it, we've uncovered some seriously thought-provoking stuff.
We have.
But there's one layer we haven't peeled back yet.
Okay.
The psychology of it all.
It's one thing to talk about societal structures and ethical dilemmas.
Right.
But how would this reverse aging process affect us on an individual level? How would it shape our understanding of who we are?
That's a really big question.
Yeah.
I mean, we build our sense of self over time.
Right.
Our identities are shaped by our experiences, our memories, the relationships we form. But in a world where you're constantly shedding those layers, what happens to the core of who you are?
It's almost like experiencing a form of reverse amnesia.
Wow.
You're not just losing years.
Right.
You're losing the memories and knowledge associated with those years.
Right.
Imagine waking up one day and not remembering a significant chunk of your life.
Yeah.
It would be incredibly disorienting.
It would be like losing pieces of yourself, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, the story really highlights this through Evelyn's relationship with her best friend, Marcus.
Yeah.
He's getting younger.
Right.
And his memories of their shared past are fading.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking to see her struggling with that loss,
Yeah.
especially as she's dealing with her own sense of identity slipping away.
It really makes you question how we form and maintain lasting bonds.
Yeah.
When the foundation of those bonds, those shared experiences, are constantly shifting, does the love remain even when the memories don't? It's a question that resonates deeply even in our world where time moves forward.
Yeah.
How much of who we are is tied to those we love and the memories we've made with them?
It's pretty profound.
It is.
And it makes me think about how our personalities might be affected in this reverse aging scenario.
Okay.
If we knew we were going to get younger, would we be more impulsive, more willing to take risks, knowing we could essentially undo our actions?
Right.
Or would we be more cautious,
Okay.
recognizing the potential ripple effects, even if those effects are ultimately temporary?
That's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could argue that it might make us more reckless.
Right.
After all, if you have a built-in reset button, why not push it?
Right.
But on the other hand, knowing that your actions have consequences, even if those consequences can be reversed,
Yeah.
might actually make you more responsible, more mindful of how you impact others.
And then there's the whole concept of regret.
Okay.
It's something we all grapple with in our linear lives.
Right.
We think about the paths not taken, the choices we wish we could undo.
Yeah.
But in a world where you literally get younger, the possibility of second chances becomes very real.
It's a fascinating idea.
It is.
You could go back and pursue that passion you abandoned,
Right.
rekindle a relationship that fell apart,
Yeah.
or simply make different choices knowing what you know now.
It sounds almost tempting,
It does.
but it also makes me wonder if those second chances would hold the same weight.
Mm.
If you knew you could always go back and fix things, would you truly value the present moment?
Yeah.
Would you make the same effort, take the same risks, knowing you could essentially rewind and try again?
That gets to the heart of how this reverse aging scenario
Yeah.
challenges our entire understanding of time and how it shapes our values, our choices, and ultimately our sense of self.
Yeah.
We're so conditioned to think of time as linear, as something that moves inexorably forward.
Right.
But what if that wasn't the case? What if we could experience time differently?
What if instead of fearing aging and clinging to the past,
Yeah.
we could embrace the idea of continuous renewal, of constantly evolving and becoming something new?
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is.
And that's what makes this entire exploration so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about a fictional world where people age in reverse.
Right.
It's about using that concept as a lens through which to examine our own lives,
Yeah.
our own understanding of time and what truly matters to us.
It's been an incredible journey,
It has.
and I think we've all learned a lot from this deep dive.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's time for us to resurface, to step back into our linear world. But as you go about your day, I encourage you to keep thinking about these questions.
Yeah, definitely.
If you could rewind your life, what moments would you relive? What choices would you make differently? And perhaps most importantly, what are you doing right now to create a life you wouldn't want to reverse?
That's a perfect thought to leave our listeners with.
I think so.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey.
And thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
This has been The Deep Dive.
Yes, it has.
See you next time.